Hey guys, welcome to the RedEye Superversive live stream for Halloween. Yes, where the true horror is existentialism. That's actually quite funny. The true horror of living an unimpressive lifestyle. My. Honestly, it's been a pretty quiet day for Halloween. No trick-or-treaters really running around. A few things. It's been quiet. It's been a really quiet day. But I've got some nice little horror stories for you that I think you'll enjoy, as well as just a few ideas. One of the things I've noticed about Pulp Rev is that their horror doesn't ever really feel like horror to me. And I'm not dissing Pulp Rev, if anyone's saying that. Partly because I don't feel like it's horror, because it usually ends with the main character or something killing the horror in question. And don't even it's like, how do I want to say this? It's like the Larry Correa thing. Sure, there's the existential horror of, not the existential, cosmic horror of Amenhotep or whatever. No, it was Penumbra spelled back. Armenep? There we go. Of Armenep and other things in the Enkidu demon or whatever it is, the chaos thing. Any number of other things. But, it's always felt killable. They just need to figure out how. And it's I don't claim it's easy, or anything like that. The fun is watching him build a bigger gun or something like that. But no, it never feels like how Lovecraft did it. And I always feel that's a little bit different. Like at some point, characters should meet something for horror and Halloween, should meet something that they cannot defeat, cannot explain, and then sort of die to it or have to escape it or something like that. Sure, we can say, oh, we can defeat these monsters and all that jazz, but honestly, it just doesn't feel the same. If you got a big enough gun to kill Cthulhu, it doesn't feel like horror. It's barely horror, I'm gonna say. I'm pretty fine with that. I'm not knocking it or anything like that. But it does feel like it's not quite there horror-wise. Zombies are kind of and vampires and other things are kind of a special case. Because it's not the same size. Because, if it's too big, it just feels like it's going to crush you, and then there's nothing else to it. Get done, good night, world's ending, all there is to it. But then, but then there's the personal demons, the issue things, like vampires and werewolves and Frankensteinian monsters and all that good stuff. And even though they're killable, maybe even easily killable, if you know the right rules, it doesn't have the same sort of scale. Like with Dracula, it wasn't that they could never kill Dracula, it's that they never got close enough to him to kill him. All right? They had to go through the various things, kill Mina. I think it was Mina. Was it Mina? Was it the other girl? No, Mina survived. It was the other girl. And then, of course, Dracula makes his escape. He GTFOs back to Castle Dracula, and they catch him on the way and destroy the castle and stake him. So it's like, it wasn't really like a crazy fight. It was just, the horror. Then they caught him, and then he's dead. And that seems counterintuitive for today's audience, at least the pulp red one. Mm-hmm. But it's always been kind of interesting to me. Because it's like, it's all the build-up. And then it's like, it's done. You don't need to have a guy be thrown through a wall or anything like that to either maintain horror or to handle the various things that come your way. Zombies are even interesting because they're more easy to kill, but there's so many of them, and a good author will use them as a metaphor for something, so it carries meaning and depth beyond it. So the horror isn't just the zombies, but rather kind of like the whole societal thing. Like, because of the zombies, because the zombies are normal people, NPCs. It goes from zombies are NPCs. It goes from the horror of the body horror, to the societal horror, the existential horror. If I wanted to, I guess I could make everything connect to existentialism or something. Existential horror. Horror. Oops. An existential horror. Ooh. No, thank you. But honestly, that's kind of boring to me. Let's read a story. So I've got my favorite horror book with me right now. It's called 12 Great Black Cats and Other Eerie Scottish Tales. It's pretty amazing. Very fond of it. There's a whole bunch of different ones, stories from Scotland. They had quite a few ghosts and whatnot. Let's see here. Just trying to find the right page. Hope you all have had a good, there we go, Dead Halloween. I actually wrote a similar story to this for the Luna anthology, Planetary anthology, when that comes out. Very much inspired by this. Which I'm going to ask if I can read that. I'll be right back. Still going to be here, though. Yep. My. Kind of had a hard day today, so I'm kind of out of energy. I just ate a lot of Taco Bell, though. The real horror will be my stomach tomorrow. The nightmare scene. His bathroom overflows. His agony upon the toilet. He rocks in a rictus of pain and savage features. The sounds he makes would quell hell. The methane inferno. Rattled the windowsill. What horror did he experience in that cramped apartment? What nightmare did he smell? It is a smell I have never smelt on Earth before. A smell out of space. Nah, she's not answering yet. Well, that's okay. But, he found clutching at his face, dead as a doornail. Such a look of agony upon his face and rooted in his eyes I shall never forget. I couldn't get the smell out of my head, the look of horror upon his eyes. I hope you understand that this is why I'm mad, why I can no longer do my job as a policeman. What I saw in that apartment changed me forever. Yes, that's exactly how it works. Hmm. I'm just gonna send an email. Sorry for the delay, guys. Let's see, I've also got a few other ones. So I don't want to do too many cat ones. Oh, hello. Yeah, all right. Outside many, this is called The Weeping Lass at the Dancing Place. It's pretty spooky. Outside many a Scottish village, where the crossroads meet, there will be a level bit of ground lying in one of the triangles made by the intersection of the roads. In the old days, folk would be calling such a spot the dancing place, because it was the custom of the young lads and lasses of the neighborhood. Ooh, I'll go for that next. Well, let's see here. Young lasses and lasses neighborhood to gather there to dance away the hours of the moonlit night. Generations of lively young feet trod down and packed the soil in these places until the surface was as hard and as smooth as stone. No fine lord and his lady could have ever found a grander floor to dance upon than the dancing place. It was once in the summer twilight, a long, long time ago, that a company of young folk gathered at such a dancing place to foot it gaily by the light of the moon. They came from all directions. Those from the village on foot, those who lived further away on crofts or farmsteads, riding upon shaggy wee Highland ponies, or upon their workday mares. Some of the lads came riding with their lasses perched on their saddles behind them. Some of them came walking with their sweethearts in their arms. Their gay voices rose sweetly on the fair, fresh breeze of the summer evening, and the sound of talk and laughter filled the air as young folk met. Those who came alone soon found partners, except for one lass who came stealing along from the village. At the end of the merry line, she did not join the others, but sat herself down in the shadows cast by a hedge along the road. Spooky already. No, not really. The voices of the dancers provided the music for their dancing. Having neither pipe nor fiddle to mark the measures, they moved to the tunes of the songs they sang, and if the breath of some of them failed in the exertion of the dance, there was always enough of the singers to keep the song going until the laggards could take up the tune again. The lass who sat under the hedge made no move to join the fun. Word had been brought to her in this early springtime some months before that her lover had been drowned at sea during the herring fishing, and she had made a vow never to sing or dance again all her whole life long. From the day they told her of her true love's death, she had spent all her time lamenting and weeping. Even in her sleep she dreamed of her loss, and the tears ran down her cheeks while she slept. It was the grief of her life that she could not sit and mourn beside the grave of her dead lover, but the seaside village to which he had gone for the fishing was at a distance from his own home. When his body was washed ashore, the villagers had carried it to their own graveyard and buried it there. Now the lass sat by herself in the shadow of the hedge, near the dancing place where she and her love had once been happy together, and watched and listened and wept. While the dancers were merrymaking, a man came cantering along the road on a great black horse. He pulled up his seat at the side of the merry throng, and swinging himself from its back, he hurried to join their sport. The dancers, intent upon their own amusement, paid him little heed, but opened their ranks to let him in. He, for his part, threw himself into the dance with a will. No voice laughed louder, or sang more gaily, no foot moved more fleetly than that of the stranger in their midst. So the night wore on, and many a reel and staff spay and jig was footed by the young folk, and many a gay lit was sung. But all good things must come to an end. As the hour grew late, the dancers, tiring, began to steal away from home. One or two at a time they went at first, then in larger numbers, until the last stragglers in a body hurried away. No one was then left at the dancing place but the stranger who had ridden there upon his black horse, and the lass who sat weeping under the hedge. He strode up to the lass and stood looking down upon her. "You were once a bonny, bonny lass," said he, "and ye'd be bonny again if your face were not so raddled with the weeping, and your eyes not so swollen red." She buried her face in her hands and wept harder. "Why would I not be weeping?" said she. "The tears I'm shedding are for my own true love who is dead." "Greeting and grieving will not bring back the dead to life again," the stranger said roughly. "So much mourning serves no purpose but to make it so the dead cannot rest easy in their graves. Come, lass, dry your tears and hush your lament, and tread a measure with me." She looked up at him, but could not see his face because of the tears in her eyes. She shook her head. "I will not dance," said she. But he reached down and took her wrist in his hand, and pulling her to his feet, he drew her towards the dancing place. She held back and struggled with all her might, but he was stronger than she, and he would not let her go. Against her will, she found her feet were moving to the figures of the dance, and while he whistled softly to mark the time of their steps. "I will not," she protested and tried to free herself. "Aye, but you will," said he, and she could not stop, because he whirled her so madly and held her so fast. Then she looked up at the face that bent above her. A shaft of cold moonlight lay wide upon it, and she cried out. The face she saw was that of her lover whom she had mourned so long. Her heart leapt for joy, and she called him by name. "They told me you were dead," she cried. "Is that what they told ye?" he asked. "They said you were dead and long buried." "Did they say so?" And he asked, and he whirled her faster and faster in the dance. "You will never leave me again," she begged him. "I must be on my way from here, lass, long before the break of dawn." "Then I shall go too," the lass cried out. "Take me with you wherever you go." "My dwelling place is small and low," he told her. "I doubt you'll like it overmuch. The walls are damp and it is dark, and there's little more than room enough for me." "With me to help will sure to earn a better," the lass insisted stoutly. "I'll help with my hands and share your toil every day." "You'll do better to find yourself a new love." "Ye shall not go without me." "Come then, if you must." Then he took her up behind him on his great black horse, and they galloped up the road away he had come. "Hold fast, the time is short. We have a long way to go, and I must be home before the break of day." The black horse spurned the stones of the road with his hoofs until sparks flew out at either side. The wind came tearing at them, but never caught up with them as they sped by. "Hold fast!" the lass's lover called out to her over his shoulder, and at his command she caught his belt in both hands and held it tight. Then a chill came over her. She felt so cold that she thought she could not bear it. She wondered that a summer night would freeze one to the bone like many one of winter, but laid it to the speed at which they rode. Her lover's garments whipped back against her. She wondered, as they touched her, why they felt so damp, when no rain had fallen along the way. "Why is your coat so wet?" she asked, but he made no reply at all. The black horse raced faster and faster, through the clachan and the village, over the hill and down. Will we not be there soon? Will we not soon be there? The lass cried out in despair, but her lover whipped his steed on through the night without answering a word. Then, of a sudden, her shawl flew up into her face. She had to take one hand from her belt to pull the shawl down and wrap it around herself. When she reached to take hold of the belt again, she gasped. Instead of a handful of his linen shirt, as she grabbed again, there we go. The cloth was icy, cold, and heavy with moisture. Why are your clothes so dripping wet? Oh, could Buddy think you'd been riding through a storm, but no rain at all has fallen. See then, my own clothes are dry. Just at that moment, they came to the gate of a kirkyard where the kirk stood as the church. In case you guys can't understand anything I'm saying. And since there's only one person other than me watching it, but it's as much for me as anyone else. With its gates on either side, her lover slowed his black horse down and turned it in at the gate, bringing there we go. Bringing it to a stop among the graves at one side of the kirk. This is my dwelling place, he told her as he alighted from his horse. You gave me no rest in my grave. The sound of your voice lamenting kept me awake night and day, and if my clothes are wet, 'tis little wonder, for the tears you have shed have gathered and run down into the place where I lay. Now you shall cease your weeping, and lie beside me in my grave, and I shall have peace at last. The lass looked down at the face that was turned up at her to her own. She saw with horror that it was not a face of it all, but a bony skull, and under the clothes that clung so wetly there was no warm living flesh, but only the whitened bones. She knew that her lover was dead indeed, and that it was his ghost that had brought her here. Come, he said, and reached up to pull her down from the back of the horse. But she cried nay, and slipped to the ground on the other side. She gathered up her skirts and ran away from him, faster than she'd ever run in her life before. He came after her, his bony hands outstretched to catch her. She felt his fingers take hold of the border of her shawl, but she cast off the shawl and ran on. She ran out from among the graves and down the path in front of the kirk and through the gate of the kirkyard into the road. She was growing too short of breath to keep on running. She glanced over her shoulder to see how close he had followed her back. But just at the moment she looked, the dawn broke in the eastern sky, and on every side the cocks began to crow to greet the morn. Like a puff of mist dissolving, ghost and horse disappeared, and lass saw naught behind her but the kirk and the kirkyard with its graves peaceful in the first gray morning light. The shock of relief at finding her pursuer gone was too great for the lass to bear. She lost her senses and fell to the road, where she lay. A milkmaid on the way to milk her cows found the lass lying there in the middle of the road and ran to the village close by to fetch help. Men came and carried her to a house where kind hands took her in and cared for her until she came to herself again. There we go. They were curious to know what had happened to her, and when she told her story, that they were amazed. They might have thought that she had dreamed it all, or even that she was deaf, if it had not been for the shawl. She had told them of the casting of her shawl away, when the spectre grasped it in his hand, and it was true she wore no shawl when she was found. It was 2 or 3 days later that one of the villagers went to the kirkyard to tidy the graves, and saw upon them what looked to be a bit of tartan cloth with fringe at the edge. He went to pick it up, wondering how it came to lie here, but found that it was buried deep in the mound of the grave. Pull as he might, he could not get it out. Then he remembered the strange lass's shawl and hurried to tell his neighbors what he had found. They all ran to the kirkyard and brought the lass with them. "'Tis my shawl," she told them. "I've had it many a year. I would not like to lose it." But it was so firmly fixed in the soil that the strongest man in the village could not pull the shawl out. In the end, they fetched shovels and dug it out. They dug all the way down to to the coffin, but still they could not pull the shawl away. It was not until the minister said that they might open the coffin lid to release the end of the shawl that they found out what held it so fast. There inside the corner of the coffin, there inside the coffin was the corner of the shawl, held tight in the bony fingers of the man who was buried there. It was the grave of the lass's lover, whose drowned body had washed ashore and buried by the villagers. When the lass recovered from the fright of that terrible journey, she went back to her own village again. She wept no longer for her dead lover, since she had no wish to disturb him, lest he come and carry her off again. Very nice. I like that one. It's not quite 12 Great Black Cats, but I don't want to inundate you with cat stories. I do like cat stories, though. I used to have a little black cat who was roaming the neighborhood. I think he's still running around. I called him Young Scratch. And he had the most baleful glare you've ever seen on a cat. Great yellow eyes, calm demeanor, always looked like he was scowling. And he was the sort of man to scowl, you know? Very much so. I'm certain that he was evil. But that's okay. Oh, there it is. Oh, there it is, Great Black Cat at the witching hour. I'm going to catch my breath for a second. Feel free to put your favorite Halloween stuff in chat. Quite frankly, I'm most fond. Let's see. I like horror films. I do like horror films. I do like slashers. But I kind of like a deeper burn. When there's a little bit of the soul in peril. Basically, it's like not just the soul in peril, but everything else, you know? Where the life and limb could be lost, but there's also a chance to lose everything to madness and despair. Pandorum and Event Horizon are two excellent science fiction movies about that very subject. Indeed, I think Pandorum is a very underappreciated horror story. It's full of cannibals and stuff like that. Kind of falls away at the end, but the twist is absolutely excellent. My. And Event Horizon doesn't really have a twist, or not much of one, because you can figure out what's going on pretty easily, I want to say. And it's like open it to hell, various people get possessed, evil things happening, geometry starts messing up. It's all very good stuff. Quite frankly, I feel like, thinking of geometry, that non-Euclidean is overused. Like H.P. Lovecraft did not understand the mathematics, as I understand it. Therefore, he wrote that sort of thing. I think if you create something that's, if it's a giant building or whatever, or a creation of some kind, and it's spooky, it should be off kilter. Nothing should make sense about it. It's clearly a multi-ton structure, but it's balanced on a point, held up by space, and there's straight lines in it, but they always seem to curve, so that even though it starts at a certain point below, it curves inward, even though you're not really sure when it started curving. only that it's in a different place and it seemed completely natural. Like that sort of thing has always done more for me. Than, not that I've seen it often. There's always felt like it would be more of a connection to what it actually is than anything else. Because I'm not making sense, I don't think. Like, there's non-Euclidean, which is rounded surfaces and maybe a bit of an uneven thing. But then there's the unearthly. Like if a spaceship is never planned to go into atmosphere, it can be any excuse me, any shape that you want. And because it's any shape that you want, you can do anything with it. Like, I recently watched a video that said that certain alien ships were very stupid designed, according to him. But the thing is, like, it's different design philosophies. And while there is like an engine connected to every spaceship, if there's no atmosphere and they're not worried about atmosphere, it can be any design they want. Except just realize that if a rider makes something super wide and super thick, so it's like a giant like cube, like a board cube, that's a lot of space you can hit with your lasers. Or if it's like long like a sheet of paper, like the Supremacy from The Last Jedi is a stupidly designed ship because it is so long and so thin and so wide. All you have to do is get the right angle to it, and you can just like shoot wherever you want. Like, Star Destroyers aren't that bad because they're tilted in such a way that most of their guns actually like can point at a target. Their firing arcs are just amazing, but the Supremacy isn't like that at all. So it's stupid. It's a stupid ship. It's a stupid movie. But anyway. There we go. So I brought up my short story here, Great Black Cat of the Witching Hour. It's got all of my favorite elements of Scottish horror mixed into it. I'm hoping it'll get into the Luna Planetary Anthology. One can hope. By the way, the Soul Anthology is open, and will be open forever. Not forever, but mostly forever. Let's see here. Mm-hmm. There we go. Some of the best Halloween stories ever written have the devil in them, such as this one. A true story told to me by a fifth cousin I met by chance in a London pub by the name of the Pillars of Hercules some years back. That's a real pub, by the way. He said that this happened to a third cousin of his on his mother's sister-in-law's side some years ago. So you know the source can be trusted. It begins like this. When Corey McGraw took the pretty Margaret Mag Henderson out to the Bannockburn Festival, Halloween Festival, he had planned an all-night event. Mag was a great girl, tall, pretty, with a great figure. He couldn't think of dating any other. He'd take her out to festival and dinner and maybe take her to the pumpkin patch and definitely to the cemetery where he'd scare her a bit to get her to hang on his arm. Then maybe sunrise over the moors. But then her grandfather caught her, and with a face of displeasure that stretched his thin skin across his skull, frightful than any disguised ghoul. You're coming home, granddaughter. There's a foul witch wind, and I like not the stars. Devilry tonight for sure. Corey thought him a crazy old man, but Mag adored him. He offered to escort the both of them home. Mag held onto his arm, which felt just right, but the old man kept staring at him and discomforting him. Suppose you'll want to stay at the house, then. We'll have to tie you to the couch, then. Keep the fox from the hen house. Mag looked away, blushing, and let go of Corey's arm. Corey hated the old man so very much. No, I'll be away to my own home, across the moors and through the woods. Corey felt certain the old man would want to do something to him while he slept, and then complain that Corey had discomforted Mad by his presence in the same house. The parson had been extra fiery against lust and superstition the last few sermons, and Mag listened carefully to him. She always had bugged him if he skipped a service, which was often. Many times he got the entire sermon from her, even as she talked his ear off. I did not take ye for a fool. Stay the night. A hint of horror crossed the old man's eyes. I did not joke about the stars or the winds. These things move about openly now that the Christ is less worshipped. Stay and risk not the peril of Halloween when the dread stars are high. I heard the rumor of a great black cat running around, assuredly on the devil's mischief. Corey waved him off, ignoring his chuntering and pleading. I'll be fine. I know the moors and the forest like the back of my hand. He grabbed Mag and gave her a kiss, mussing her red gold hair. Yet are too bonny and fine for me to be taken by some ugly old broom-riding witch. She giggled and kissed him back. Oh, me brave Manny, but you mind my grandpa, and hide and pray if you see anything witchy or smelling of sulphur. Corey clicked his tongue and gave his assurances. Soon he left her and her grandfather, one sullenly staring and the other waving. He swaggered off, leaving the lights of their home for darkness of the foggy moors between him and his house. The jaunt would take him the better part of 2 hours, but he figured that time was well spent. Exercise and cardio. I'm as fit as a fiddle traipsing about to see my girl. Pshaw to the parson, nuts to Meg's grandpa. I'll not see a single devil or witch this night, he declared both to himself and the moors as he crested the first of the low hills separating his house from the house of his beloved. The moon had filled in nicely and was nearly as bright as day despite the fog, with no lights polluting the natural shine this far into the bogs. He could see his shadow as he jogged and power walked up the moors. He danced on the crest of one in case Mag watched through her telescope and worried after him. Clouds and wisps of mist crossed the sky and his path alike, and he took enjoyment from boldly running through the banks of fog, slipping through the night, making shapes in the corner of his eyes, yet slipping away when he turned to look. The chill made him feel alive, and he jumped the creek with a running leap. Oh, but I'm brave and bonny as any son of Scotland, fit as a fiddle, and twice the fighter of any Sassenach. And so, as Corey McGraw danced up and down the moors, he bragged and boasted louder and louder until he nearly shouted over and over again about how brave and bold he lived. Then he was struck by the silence. The shadows of cloud and night had crept up on him while he walked, and so his own disappeared. No amount of moonlight seemed to better it and free his shadow from their grip. His heart fluttered a bare second, and he turned. The house Mag kept with her family could no longer be seen. No lights crested the dark hills. He could, just barely, glimpse the glint of the church steeple with a shiny gold cross on top. Corey almost wished he was listening to the parson give his dry sermons. Bah, the old man got to me. And so he went on, whistling. Corey looked around him. He first whistled tunelessly before launching into some pop song he heard on the radio, and then an old hymn. Yet it could not drown out the wind, nor did it fill the silence with anything like comfort. The echo slid under his music, bringing it lower in tone and creating almost a menacing air to the sound. He stopped whistling and began to jog through the moors. As he neared the forest, he heard a large beast slobber and lick its lips in the dark. Something heavy, like an animal as big as a car, wheezed in and out in his direction. Corey turned, cresting the moor and looking down upon him with eyes of pale blue fire and an immense black dog. It had no depth or form beyond the silhouette. Only its eyes could be seen in the dog's head at first. The next second, the mouth opened and flame shot out and out. The bark turned into a howl like a volcano, erupting, Worst of all, the inferno illuminated nothing, yet the heat scorched Corey's face. He ran for the forest with all the speed he could muster. The black dog bayed with the sound of a geyser, and galloped after him at speed no mortal hound could match. Corey dodged quick, though. Even as the flames melted the heels of his boots, he jumped into the forest. He tripped on a root, falling forward onto his face. He covered his head with his hands. He did not feel the flames, nor the hellish bite of some dog from the nightmares of his ancestors. He cast about him and saw the black hound sniff at the forest before running away. Corey cursed. Will I prefer the monster to eat me by the end? Huh. He stood and shook the leaves off his jacket. I should have stayed and let Mag's crazy old grandpa tie me up and draw on me. He saw the black dog stand on top of one of the hills and look back. The eyes pierced him from nearly a mile distant. His heart thumped in his chest, and despite a chill breeze, he sweated from every pore, from his palm to his scalp. Ach! He walked deeper into the woods, back towards home. He had not been knocked off course, but the stories his grandmother had told him came to mind. Stories of 100-year sleeps, cursed castles, dragons, ogres, and 1,000 other misfortunes danced in his head. Curse me for a fool! And again he wished he had been tied up by Mac's grandfather. He'd take the crackling and the "You're not good enough for my granddaughter" all night long over this. He continued on his way, treading carefully tree to tree. He looked for fairies, goblins, and 1,000 other monsters and threats. He avoided a fairy ring with utmost care. Sometimes he heard music in the far distance and fled the opposite way for fear of coming across some perilous fairy feast. The moon rose nearly to its zenith when he heard a rustling to his right. With the speed of desperation, Corey climbed a great oak tree, quick as a wink, and hid in the branches. He peeked out from the leaves to see what nature of danger he had stumbled on, or if they knew not of his presence. A moment later, he saw which gave him such a start. A parade of cats of many colors and breeds moved by, marching in rough order and herded by a great black tabby of such size and mass, Corey wondered if it were merely a small puma. He thought that it might be just some cats wandering around on cat business he might leave, but then he remembered Mag's grandfather's warning and stayed above in the trees. The variety of cats astounded him. Slick Siamese followed by bulky Maine Coons, which followed dignified Persians, which passed waddling munchkins who overtook a slow-moving Scottish fold, who bullied some Himalayan cats who in turn picked on the Somali cats, who had to give way before the Selkirk Rexes, and so on and so forth until Corey wondered at there being so many breed of cat. Finally, 12 cats, each a different breed representing the whole, wearing princely crowns and circlets of gem-studded gold and silver, and one with a tall bishop's mitre, joined the horde of cats below. They pushed themselves to the front, not without violence, and sat before the great black cat, which seemed asleep, chest rising and falling, eyes closed. The yowling raised to a fever pitch. Each feline screamed and hissed as loudly as it could. The whole forest shook with their cries. The only ones not making a sound were the 12 cats with crowns and the great black cat. The great black cat seemed to wake up, and then magnificently raised a paw. His voice rung out deeper and deeper than the roar of the black dog of the moors, and he said, "Oh, my subjects, I have..." No, I don't like that. "Oh, my subjects, I have, as promised, given you the rod of the earth, and interfered not with your deeds. In exchange, I request that you come and tell me your evil works of every 7 years at this date and time, that I may be satisfied you are using my gifts properly." And so the cats each began to cry out the things that they had done. It was terrible to hear them call so in human voices. Not a single one of them proclaimed a good deed. The 12 crowned cats were silent in all this. I pushed no less than 50 cups and mugs and antique glass sundries from the shelves and table. I slaughtered nearly 10,000 good and holy church mice. I kept my human slave from meeting a man who would have made her happy. She is set to die alone. I will eat the corpse. That's nothing. I cause an infection in a child that will lead to mental illness all his life. I vomited, pooped, and peed on every single piece of furniture and every inch of carpet. I killed a hobo and ate him clean to the bone over many days. I caused a scientist close to curing cancer to lose his work by jumping on his keyboard, and so on and so forth. So on and so on, and for so long that Corey worried that the whole night would be him in the tree listening to such horrid deeds. Yet the shadows didn't seem to move an inch through the long hours of listening to all the evil cats could do. And then, with eyes of gleaming yellow like polished jasper, the black cat turned to the 12 crowned cats and asked them what evils they had done to satisfy him. These villainous deeds were greater than the sum of evil done before, and their actions, whether by inspiring witches as their familiars or causing trouble for world leaders through their cat-like behavior, outclassed the villainy and misery of all the rank amateurs before them. Corey started to shudder and shake involuntarily. So many calamities over the last 7 years were from these archfiends that he could not bear to look any more. When the last one finished, the black cat sighed. I am satisfied. These evil works are such that I could not dream their equal. And all the cats, even the hatted ones, preened and prided themselves. Well, I'll dismiss you for 7 years' time, and again, perhaps the 12 here will be unseated next time. Aim high, my servants. I'll send the word through my cat's paws when we shall meet again. The joke was met by hissing and meows like laughter. The cat with the bishop's mitre said, What of the son of Adam and the tree over there? Should we fetch him down and eat him, flesh, blood, bone, and soul? The great black cat stuck out his red tongue, winking with one of his baleful eyes. I thought to keep him a snack for later. I tend to share among you as a reward. The cats without hats. Happy Halloween, Bar One Studios. The cats without hats meowed and hissed in displeasure of being left out. Corey, this is just so you know, in case you came in late. This is a short story I wrote for the Luna Planetary Anthology. I think it's pretty good for Halloween. Let's see here. The cats without crowns meowed and hissed in displeasure at being left out. Corey looked to see if there was some opportunity to jump down and run for it, but the cats surrounded the tree on every side. He could hear scratching at the trunks. Some called up to dig up the tree, others to cut it down by clawing out the wood. Corey shivered and clutched his branch tighter as the cats went on and on about how they would serve him up. Some called for carving knives, others for a great stew pot and spices, and yet others cried out again and again, over and over again. Eat him raw, lap his blood, lick his organs, gnaw his bones, and so on until Corey nearly fainted from the panic. Desperately searching for any way out, he remembered something he read in a book once and shouted, Oh, that ye the greatest cat I've ever seen, and I've seen my cats, are in my very presence. Honor me by looking upon me. It's too much. You have given me so much to live for. I have to tell everyone of your magnificence. I have to sing about your lovely, lustrous coat. I will dream of you till my dying day. Your court of cats is beyond the court of King Arthur and Charlemagne and Isabella and Ferdinand combined. He flattered the great black cat without ceasing, even as he felt the tree being shaken from its roots, and cats climbed the branches. Claws started to pick at his boots. The great black cat licked himself for a while, then cast his jaundiced eyes upward thoughtfully. Corey did not like the look on him. The great black cat looked intrigued and spat out a fur ball in a commanding way, as a man would spit. Now, hold up, my lovelies. This is a man to listen to. He has good taste in cats indeed. Sing, you said? Why don't you give me a tune? The best songs ever written have me in them. The yellow eyes blinked and examined him closely. Corey panicked, but breathed out. He had first met Mag in choir practice, after all. To be sure, your outstanding awesomeness, sir. Let's see. He thought for another second, and then in the cleanest, clearest, most excellent tone he could, he sang out to the tune of Tell Me the Old Story. Tell me about the great black cat, the unseen king of cats, of the great black cats and his glory. The great black cat shifted uncomfortably. Oh, enough. Maybe don't sing about how amazing I am. The great black cat shifted and scratched his chin with a claw. I suppose you could be useful. The cat grinned at him. All right, I won't eat you tonight. Flattery does get you everywhere with me. The cats yowled and yarled that Corey should be eaten. His bones cracked and marrow slurped up. The great black cat jumped up suddenly and howled, Quiet! All the hair on the back stood up, and the claws and teeth extended. In the night, his form seemed more like a saber-toothed tiger than just a large cat. People have been forgetting about me for years. Now only some dumb old folks tell my stories. Ho ho, what a shock they'll have when he tells everyone about meeting Old Scratch, the Emperor of Cats, eh? The cat stopped complaining. Now head out, all of you, except for my 12 princes of cats. You'll attend me personally on great mischief tonight. The crowned cats nodded and stayed while the rest slipped away, some slowly at first, then faster and faster until Corey blinked, and there were only 12 princes of cats left with the great black cat himself, Old Scratch. I've got a sweet date with some hot witches in a little while, so how about this? I'll let you live for tonight. There will be 3 wonders before midnight. If you hide in the tree and don't make a sound, after the 3rd one you'll be free to go home, for the witching hour will end then, but not before. Remember, 3 things. Now away. I must not be late for Black Mass. With a yowl that sounded like 10,000 metal nails on a chalkboard, the great black cat leaped into the shadows. Without missing a beat, the 12 princes of cat jumped after him, leaving the barest set of paw prints in the dirt, the only side they had been there. Corey thought to get down, not trusting in anything, cat, human, or otherwise, that called itself Old Scratch, and attended black masses. But as he reached out to steady himself against a trunk, he heard laughter in the breeze and cast himself in the branches. Not a second too soon, for of winds that smelled of blood, sulfur, and concoctions and perfumes so strange that Corey had no name for them, witches flew in from all corners, silhouetted against the moonlight. They rode on brooms, vacuums, motorcycles, scooters, cars, planes, which they rode on the outside, feet dangling in the pilot's cabin windows, a train that carried some 30 witches in a comfortable and luxurious passenger cabin, complete with living tea kettles, and yet more witches rode things so diverse and numerous that Corey could not stand to look at him any longer. There was a cry of delight, and a whoosh and a sparkle, and 3 red flowing, dress-clad witches descended to his hiding spot. Their hair flowed behind them, black, white, and blonde in a shimmering tricolor wave. Peaked hats with wide brims, each at a different jaunty angle, blocked out the stars behind them. The first one cackled merrily, riding a broom side saddle. The second one cooed comfortingly. The last moaned and gasped, casting herself about. Oh, sisters, what a catch! Let's take him as a gift to the master. What favor we will have, the first declared, grinning with a smile that extended her cheeks. Who? There we go. Extended her cheeks a foot either side. Corey saw the three women were fair, but each had a deformity making him hideous, like a painting, but with tears in the canvas marring it. The second batted eyelashes that tickled him from 3 yards away, where he hovered on the night air, where she hovered in the night air on her mop bucket, floating a foot or two behind and full of dirty water or blood. Her nails ran longer than the branches he tried to hide on. No, no, I can smell that he has a beloved. Let's ensorcel him so he enters a pack with us, so we can get his firstborn child and his seventh son. What power among our sisters we will have. The third's breasts were so exaggerated that they flapped about in the winds. Her hips were so thick they easily wrapped around the shop vac she rode, which she directed by turning the nozzle this way or that as she desired. Her lips outmasked Corey's thumbs. No, no, dearest sisters, let us fold him like a napkin and keep him in our purse until after the ceremonies. What fun we shall have. They laughed and giggled before agreeing with the third sister. The first said, Come, boy, we are blessed to know all arts forbidden by mortal women. The second said, Come, boy, there are things that we three can do that will open your mind to things only known by the highest Brahmins of the decadent Hindus. The third said, Come, boy, such pleasures await you as dim the holy lights of cursed heaven. And on they went. Corey tried to keep silent, but he could take no more and shouted, Get away from me, you witches! I'd sooner marry my girl Mag's grandfather than touch any of ye. Mag's more beautiful, more virtuous, and more feminine than any of you three. Striking upon a sudden inspiration, Corey cried out, Lord, preserve me and my love from these terrible witches. The first one laughed mockingly. The second one sighed as if disappointed with a child. The third pouted, her lips grotesquely exaggerated. Well, that takes all the fun out of it. Let's go. He can't be reasoned with. Guys like you make terrible lovers. Terrible. You're terrible. Excuse me. And they flew away, last in line to their dark purpose. Corey sighed, and when he thought the coast was clear, he looked for a way down. Just as he found a likely branch, he heard something, like a tinkling of the bell and the silver notes of a flute. He hid again, fearing some new terror. There passed under him a procession of 7 riders on horseback. Each one bore an instrument, flag, or strange object Corey wondered if he could bear knowing what they were for. They were most magnificently dressed people he had ever seen. They were adorned with gold, silver, and platinum jewelry. Gems of the highest quality studded every metal surface. Gold thread decorated their robes with scenes of hunts and kings and stranger things like giants, dragon, and chimera. Their horses were fine steeds and armored with barding that covered them in molten and beaten gold. These beasts required no leading, and the reins of the finest black leather remained slack in the hands of the riders. Every piece of their apparel and body shimmered in the moonlight. Their faces were more fair than anything Corey had seen before. Meg, perfectly done up in their clothes, jewelry, and makeup, would seem like an ugly dog compared to those riders. Now he could hear them talk and speak and laugh like the sound of bells. It was so lovely to hear them speak he would pay money to have them talk about the weather. Their motions were so graceful that he felt like his motions for pulling Mag close for a kiss were more like the motions of an ogre pressing his horrid lips to his hideous ogre wife. His heart slowed and began to beat in time with their tune. He felt he could cast off his clothes and dance for them, but that it would be so ugly to their eyes, they'd shame him, and he couldn't take it at all. He turned his face away so he wouldn't look at them. The music entwined in his mind, but before the final note of the spell, he was shocked out of their hypnotism. Whenever he looked through the corner of his eye, the faces so fair before changed to an ugly, pockmarked, and sin-filled face, so twisted by evil that it made the witches from before seem like supermodels on the cover of fashion magazines. Their faces were cruel and did not match the laughter and joy of their words and phrases. No matter what was said, their lips barely moved. Corey wondered if they spoke at all, for now he looked at them with horror. The lead rider, who wore as a crown a wreath of holly antlers, thorns, and frost-covered vines woven together, said to the rest, "Dearest companions, I feel as though we are being watched. Puck, search for him and point him out to us." One who had a cap like Perseus and a pair of winged sandals unique to him said with a laugh, "Ho, ho, what pleasure! See, my lord, there he is, on a branch, shivering as if a lumberjack had it in its sights." All turned towards Corey, who tried to make himself very small against the trunk. A woman with a greenwood spear and a clear dark green orb, with a golden statue of a newborn fawn at the core, said, "My goodness, what a lovely man to see us so arrayed. He is blessed among men already to see my beauty. But what more can we do for him, my lovely cousins?" Another woman, who alone covered her face in it with a mask of silver and white metal that shone with his own light, clapped her hands. "Ooh, we can give him the head of a donkey, like in the play." She had been ringing bells in time with the hoofbeats, to make the gold-shod steps yet more pleasing. A man beside her, who had a beard, and was the one who played the flute, sighed. 500 years, and it's all Shakespeare with you, Lady Mab. Let's just enchant him and send him to sleep. Mortals are all about the infinite heavens above us, so I'm told. While he sleeps, let us secret him away to some far-flung world 1,000 years hence. A figure of a man who tapped on a drum of ivory in the skins of exotic beasts said, "No, no, too complicated. We'd lose him in the asteroid belt, or down a black hole, or something, and the trick will be ruined. Let's just turn him inside out, or make him lose his memories." Several of the ladies complained at the thought of blood being splayed everywhere by turning him inside out, and the men cried out, "Boring, boring, you must do better." And so they went, debating about the merits of the donkey head against making him unable to taste cheese or switching his left and right hands. The one called Puck declared, "Switching body parts is so last century. Surgeons could switch them back these days. Let's make him fall in love with a sow." At this, Corey stiffened and said, "Mag." It was barely a whisper, but it was all the elf lords and clear all the elf but it was clear to all the elf lords and ladies, for that's what they were, had heard him. They all smiled and laughed, and the sound rang cruel beyond reason to hear. The ideas came fast and thick and smote Corey on the brow with their sadism. "Ah, let's have him switch bodies. Oh, what about curdling her breast milk? I don't think we've turned a Payne's hair seaweed green in years. Remember the girl with the ducks? I think we can do better, but with geese this time." Corey could take it no more. Again, inspiration from the sermons of the parson and the words of Mag came flooding into his mind. "God, Lord Jesus, please, have mercy upon me, a sinner, and protect Mag against evil. Keep us against those who would harm us." The elf lords and ladies, without a sound, not even their former music, turned away, and their horses disappeared into the mist that rose up from the roots of the trees. It was like they had never stopped their procession. Saying a prayer of thanksgiving, Corey returned to the business of finding a way down when he heard a slight rustle in the bushes. For a fourth time, he hid himself in the branches. The gray-black cat sauntered in, swaggering and happy beyond what Corey thought reasonable. You still here, you tasty silver-tongued flatterer? The cat meowed, and the 12 evil princes of cats leaped out of the bushes every which way. Oh, I did not think my plan would work out so well, or that I would be so fortunate in the wonders. I might actually pass you by and keep you in your hiding spot. Say, the witching hour. Say, the witching hour is nearly over, and I'm hungry for a snack. How about you, my friends? The 12 cats meowed in agreement. What? You said you wouldn't eat me. Corey couldn't believe his ears, and he was having enough trouble with his eyes already. He expected something, but not for the black cat to treat his hiding spot as some sort of larder. The cat's eyes cast himself aside, as if he couldn't believe Corey's outburst. I wouldn't be much of a prince of lies if I didn't lie, would I? The great black cat laughed and, taking a running start, leaped up and opened his maw so wide it would have eaten the tree in one bite. Corey screamed and shouted. He threw up his hands before his face and cried, God, Jesus Christ, Holy Ghost, please protect me against the violence and evils of the devil. The great black cat laughed again, but when he bit Corey, who continued praying even as the fangs touched him, his teeth could not find purchase. His mouth began to smoke as steam, and the great black cat leaped back, yowling in pain. Bishop Whiskers, Duke Southpaw, get him! We need him to stop. We need to stop him praying. I cannot touch him if he is in prayer. Yet Corey focused with all his might, praying for God's protection. The two cats tackled Corey, but they leapt back, screaming and burning, their fur smoldering where they touched him. Every one of the cats tried several times in several ways of distracting him, yet they all failed. The great black cat spat and hissed, cuffing his 12 followers. He called them every evil name and promised them great tortures in hell for their failure and great pleasants or favors if they should succeed. Yet not a single one could touch Corey as he prayed. Finally, the great black cat looked above, and the moon had begun to move again in the sky. Gah, fools, half-wits, the witching hour is over, and I must away. You were lucky that he protected you here. I've eaten men who thought themselves holier than you many times. In the Colosseum, in the form of wild animals, I lapped Christian blood that flowed like rivers until I purposely burst the stomach of the animal I resided in and jumped to the next. I won't forget this, and if the guard over you is ever dropped, I will do you a great evil. And the great black cat screamed and charged into the forest, and the 12 evil crowned cats with him. Corey leaped down from his tree and ran to the house as the moon set, where he called Mag and told her all the wondrous and terrible things that happened to him. She wept and praised God that he had been preserved, and having prayed all night for him. From then on, Corey respected what her old grandfather said, and the grandfather came to love Corey as a member of the family and supported his marriage to Mag the next year. In all that time, until the day he died, Corey never missed a Sunday service, morning and evening, nor a Wednesday prayer meeting. He said, for the fear of the devil and his evil work. And the people thought he spoke of the temptation and sin. But we know the real story, don't we? I am. I am way more tired than I thought I'd be. But I think that's a pretty strong story. Good ending. Solid. uh, I do like stories like that yet. You know? It's got the devil, it's got morality, but more than that, it's also got sort of that need. That need to sort of like get it accurate. Hmm? You know, like sort of the feeling is that like there are certain rules to it. Halloween stuff officially on discount. True that. I know I'm going to be looking around a few different places, but there's a horror of losing your soul, as well as losing love and all that other stuff. And it's just, it's just horror. Because you can't ever get that stuff back. I know I don't have any viewers right now at this second, but I'm pretty tired. I'll see you guys again Sunday around 2 p.m. Central Time, and I'm going to talk about Galaxy's Edge. I can't seem to get into contact with Jason Onsbach or Nick Cole, but I'm trying. I'd like to get them on here sometime. I enjoy both of them, and I think they're just great. Thing is, we have such a small audience for this stuff that it's going to be a very long time before I see any sort of return on my time investment. But it's for you guys more than anything else. I hope you do enjoy my couple of stories. That I read out loud with the terrible Scottish accents and everything, and everyone getting a voice. I enjoy it. You guys have a happy Halloween. Don't disturb any fairy rings. Stay away from any witches' covens. And for Lord's sakes, don't play with a Ouija board, please. Happy Halloween.